think we all agreed weekends probably for our audience. Our audience being everyone using Autohotkey. The chances of someone taking off during the week, like to do this, is probably slim. So we figured let's do it on the weekend.
Yeah, and we said like 10 o'clock because Joe said that's a good time, and I was looking at the time zones, and I was like, 10 o'clock EST, we get California, like he mentioned in the last video or whenever he mentioned it. But I was also looking, I was like, we could even get people like maybe for like a little bit in like all the way even like Moscow, Russia, because it's like nighttime for them. So depending what time, like, that section of Eastern European goes to bed, we might even get like some people who can at least join in for a little bit there. So yeah, it's perfect. So sorry, anybody on the other side of the world.
Well, when we got to pick one time, right? It is, generally speaking, it's the best time for the biggest potential audience for us. Yeah. Hope everyone's doing well. Actually, and I don't know if he's joining us. Let's see, I emailed it to myself, but we had a question regarding a couple of things. One was automating a browser, and Isaiah, you want to share your screen and pull up? So, yeah, sure. Let's see. John had written, and he actually used our form, crazily enough, which thank you very much. When I open a Chrome page, how can I do it as a new tab or a new Chrome instance? And then how do I set it as active and bring it to the front? So the first thing I'd say is, because the next question might also be related to it, we're not 100% certain, but when you're automating Chrome, there's, automating browsers is a fair amount trickier compared to a lot of other programs. There is a Chrome class, which you could use, and that's what Isaiah is demonstrating right now from Geek Dude, his Chrome class. You can launch it, or you could connect to its current running instance if the Chrome is in debug mode when you've launched it, which go watch some more videos on how that.
Yeah.
Which I know that's a big problem with people who are at work getting in debug mode.
Yeah, it is not going to work that easily.
Yeah.
But in general, if you use the Chrome module, this is something that is used from. It is a library that can be found on GitHub. You can include it, and as soon as you include it, you have access to all its functions and so on. And the idea, which is in the examples provided, there's a few things that you can actually kind of infer, but I just kind of made it as simple as possible so that it is a little bit clearer. But you just need to have a Chrome profile folder where you're gonna, the Chrome library is gonna input all the files for that Chrome. You create a new Chrome pointing to that folder, and that instance that you have, that you just created, would open a window, and it would just go ahead and right away connect to it. And you would use the get page function to get a page instance. After you get a page instance, then you can manipulate that page however you want. Usually when you open up, the page should be blank at the beginning. So the first thing you want to do is call page navigate with some parameters on it. I think there is another function which is a little bit clearer, like open a tab, I think. Get page list. I will double check later. But in general, you just call the page navigate function with the URL that you want to go to, and it would it should just go ahead and open it. So you cannot write to it. Let me see. Hold on. I'm sorry. So it couldn't go ahead and open it. Couldn't write to the folder. Why not? It should have created a folder. It's there. Yeah.
Which is a really good point of like, this is also why
that's the reason why that's the reason why we could. So it created the folder. It cannot access it for some reason. It usually, maybe it's because Chrome was open or something. Let me close it just in case. But in general, it should be
You know, I didn't realize it, but now that Hangouts is dead, because before Hangouts would stay running and it actually was really problematic because I closed Chrome, but it really didn't close. Now that Hangouts is no longer really a thing, maybe it's that's not an issue.
I will say so. Maybe he hasn't updated. But I remember there was some issues with the folder thing. I fixed it at some point, but the point is, this is how it would be. We would have to just figure out about the Chrome profile because we have to verify where he's writing and so on. It just says that he cannot write to it. As soon as we finished with that, as soon as it can
Hangouts is no longer.
and actually you have noticed that when I run it, it actually tries to open a web page. So if I do it, even though it's telling me that it cannot write to it, it actually opens Chrome, and it actually would try. It gives me the web page here, but it's not loading it because it hasn't connected to it. That's the reason why it's not just going to the website.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, Isaias, but the main benefit of using your profile is if you have your passwords or you're logged in or whatever, that it'll leverage that.
It would, yeah. You just point to where your profile is. It would just load your cookies and everything that is in that folder. And it is great. We have been using it for other things, but
and why don't you go ahead and show the next one, which Thom, this is and you're feel free to chime in on this next one, because I showed Isaias just a couple days ago of the auto control tool.
Oh yeah.
He was playing with it this morning and
right. So we were actually just using the auto control. Let me verify it is here. And this one was a very simple way of doing it. You could just create a new action, which is what we're going to be doing.
So auto control is an extension you install, by the way.
Yes.
And even at work, usually you can get around it because you don't really need admin rights and stuff too. So that's why it's also a nice kind of solution to the Chrome.Autohotkey.
Yes. So in this case, you just use the trigger. It could be anything. There's different types of events that we can choose. But we could actually just set up a hotkey like Control R, for example, and then we select what actions we want to take. So one of the things, let's say, for example, that I want to activate a tab. Now, here when I'm activating a tab, let me see something. I wanted to select which tab was it. I'm sorry, let me double check something. So if I want to activate the tab, here it is, down here. I would select to which tab I want to apply it to. I think we could go ahead and select other options to select what I'm going to filter by. So basically, I just want to select any tab that has the URL, and I could just pick, let's say, The-Automator.com here, or it contains. You can make it equals or contains that. And here at the bottom, you can actually see from the tabs if it was able to select a specific window or tab as you were trying to get. So yes, it was able to select the Automator, so I know that at least this filter is working. I have it, and after I activate it, I could actually perform any actions. I don't even have to activate it. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, but I don't even have to activate the tab for it. But I could use an other selection. You can select whatever you want. You can minimize it, restore it, do whatever you want on those. You have a lot of actions that you can perform. But if you want like the full possibilities of it, you can just go ahead and select other and run a script. And that would actually allow you to run whatever action you want on that particular thing. So as a very simple example, let's go ahead and select your...
And this is JavaScript, just so people know.
Yeah, it would be JavaScript, which would be great, because if you already know JavaScript, it would be easy for you. If you don't, it is very similar to many things that you have done, because many programming languages look like JavaScript. So it wouldn't be that hard to at least get an idea of what's going on.
Especially if you're in version 2 of Autohotkeys, you know, it looks a lot more similar than version 1 does for sure.
Yes, it does. But in this case, for example, if I want to just select the category from here, I would just go ahead and inspect that object, get its, I don't know, JS path maybe, and I would just test it. So yeah, I have my JS path for it, so it is already selecting it. And I could just select an index, let's say number 3, and you would see that it changes whenever I do that. So if I just go ahead and copy this code, I could put it on my script here, and now whenever I press Control R, it would activate the tab and go ahead and run that script that I just showed. So say, for example, this is not selected, right? So there is nothing selected there. Now, if I'm outside and I hit Control R, it should bring the page, the tab on, and it would select that particular option at the same time. So it is crazy fast. It's very cool. I actually like it, and it is really, really flexible. You can link a lot of actions, and especially as you can actually run JavaScript, there is no way, like there is no limits to what you can do with this. So this is another way that you can go ahead and do that. So those are the options that you have. I would really go with auto control here. It has a graphical user interface, but if you need like full control, yeah, I would go with the Chrome AHK library, in which you can do whatever you want. The only thing is that if there's any kind of like little issues, then you would have to solve them prior to it working. So it has been a little while since it could updated that particular library. So there might be a few things that changed, and that's the reason why it's not working at the moment.
And then something else I want to add to that is if you're doing like something solely in Chrome, you don't really need Autohotkeys. You can do pretty much everything like you just showed everybody. But I had a situation where I needed to transfer data from one program to Chrome. So I did kind of, basically I used the clipboard as a bridge between that program. So my Autohotkey script was pretty simple. I had, whatever hotkey it was. Maybe I highlighted text and it copied it to the clipboard. And then I did a send command to trigger whatever the hotkey is you created in the actual extension. So then it was able to read the clipboard. So that's the only, I mean, if you're not doing anything outside of Chrome, just use the program. But if you do need to talk, I found using the clipboard to be just like the simplest, fastest way, and just having to do a send command that would then trigger the Chrome extension itself, grab the data from the clipboard, and then, inject it wherever using JavaScript or one of those pre-built actions that you can pick, which basically just writes the JavaScript for you in the background.
Yeah, or you could have it read from a file as well, so you got to
yeah.
The file in back.
Right, and that is a point that I want to kind of like mention for that person who is actually talking about Chrome. Whenever you're using browsers are actually in an isolated environment for security purposes. So the browser itself, it is a little bit difficult for it to access information about your computer. So using a library like Chrome.ahk, as I was showing, helps you bridge between the Autohotkey program and the Chrome browser right there. If not, it would be, as Thomas was just explaining, you would have to do some workarounds, like using the clipboard as a bridge, or it would be a little bit more difficult to actually do that. But it is because the browsers are in an isolated environment, and that's for security purposes.
Yeah, and Chrome especially, every tab's pretty much like isolated from each other, I believe, right? That's kind of why it's considered so RAM hungry. Is, Internet Explorer, I open 10 tabs. It's like I'm only running one program that just happens to have 10 tabs. But Chrome, you open 10 tabs, you go to your process ID, there's 10 instances of Chrome running. So from a security point of view, it's awesome. It's probably the best way to do it. But from, kind of our point of view, where we're trying to make maybe tabs talk with each other, it kind of causes a lot of issues there for security reasons.
Yeah, that is right. Well, if people didn't go ahead doing the things that they do.
Yeah.
gathering data from one tab to another and doing stuff
Yeah.
then they needed to do that. Now, Joe, you told me that he had kind of like a second question that he was
Right. This had to do-
related to it.
Yeah, well, and that's what we weren't sure, right? But it says, when I try mouse move with WinSpy coordinates on a dual monitor, sometimes the coordinates are on the wrong screen. And basically, the next line, he says, I try mouse move to click a drop down a sidebar in Google Drive. And that's why I think
Yeah.
probably Chrome.
So,
But
just imagine. So he's trying to perform a click on inside a Chrome window, looks like. Sometimes that's not the best solution, but and he's mentioning that it's not really working. I'm not really sure what he means by that, but I will show you kind of like a very simple way that you can do something similar if you are, even if it is inside of Chrome, or it doesn't matter where. If you want to send a click to some location, I would give you kind of like a simple way to do it. With native Autohotkey. Let me share my screen real quick again. So the main thing is that you would need to know where you want to click. So say, for example, and I have kind of like a little piece of code that allows me to kind of like save the location of an X or Y coordinate. So let me go ahead and do this, not screen, I'm going to make it relative. This piece of code just loops and gets the position of the mouse, and whenever you click on Control L button, it just saves those locations into a file so I can later on use it. So if I run it, you will see like a little tooltip that, depending on the window, it would be related to that window. So the location is probably going to be the same most of the times. So if I want to grab Notepad here and I want to click on that menu item, I know that the location of that menu is not going to change. So I just save that as a location. I have what I want, just the coordinate for it. And I just want to do the following. I just want to activate Notepad, for example, if it exists, and for that reason I want to set the title match mode to 2, which is like anywhere on the screen. I would activate the window, and then I would just use whatever this code gave me, which is going to be kind of like the command for clicking on it. And I would just click on it. So if I do that, let's go ahead and open Notepad, have it around. Let's just minimize it. So this little piece of code, making the mouse relative, matching the window name, activating it and clicking, should just go ahead and activate Notepad, if you can find it, and would try to click on the menu as it just tried to do here, but it didn't activate Notepad for some reason. Let me see something.
maybe it was too fast.
Nope. Win activate, which it should have just,
Or
hold on, let me try something.
sleep in between there.
Let me just try to win activate. It's not activating Notepad for some reason. Yeah. Maybe it is because, yeah, that's it. It was case sensitive.
Yeah.
So if you put Notepad without, the capital N, it would just don't do that. But now, if I just activate it, it would go ahead and click on that particular location related to the Notepad window. So that's another way that you can go ahead and click stuff. You can just go ahead and activate the window that you're looking for and move the mouse to a relative location on that window. If what you're trying to click doesn't move around, this is a good solution because it would be always in the same position. So the only thing that you have to figure out is the location of the X and Y coordinates for that thing that you want.
But as we could take it a step further, depending on what he's doing, right? Is often there are controls or other things, right? And if you just think about
Right.
what you're searching for,
Yes.
the more, and it's really interesting if you think about it, once you understand the DOM. In the DOM, often you look for an ID. Why? Well, because
Yeah.
it's a unique thing, right? And then you step to here and here. the closer you can get to what you're trying to find, and then do that relative distance, which sometimes you have to switch to like tag names, which is an array, and like it's a fourth one. Sometimes you don't have a unique way to get it, but the closer you step down to it, the more reliable and consistent your script will be, right?
Remember that we have some control click options, like it would click on a specific given control. If you can operate on the handle or the class NN for that control, or you can control set text. So you can operate on a control directly without having to first finding the control and then clicking a relative position. If you find the control, you can right there click on it, even if it is not active. So using control click, control set text, control move, all of those things.
The simple spy tool I wrote with Maestria just because it's kind of like the IWB2 learner tool. It's just doesn't show you 8 million things. The normal, actually, Isaiah, go back to sharing real quick and show the Win Spy that comes with Autohotkey, right? Which is a great tool. Don't get me wrong. It's just there's so much other stuff that people who are new to this get a little confused, I think.
So this is the Windows Spy that comes with Autohotkey, and you will see a lot of different numbers going on. And if you don't know what you're looking for, then it would be a little bit annoying. And in some situations, I feel that the numbers are off by a little bit, because supposedly, now they're going okay. So at the beginning, it was giving me the same for the screen and the window. It was giving me the same, and I was like, that's not possible. But now it is actually refreshed. So yeah, it gives you a lot of information, focus control, the active position. So sometimes you don't need all of that to do whatever you're looking to do. Maybe you just need very specific information, and that's where the learner tool would come in handy, because it just filters out a lot of things out of there.
And just, if people are really new, just show them, if you have any running Autohotkey script, right, on the system tray, you can click in there.
Yeah, right click and you select Windows Spy right there, and it would give you this tool right here. So if you need to know, like, for example, as we were looking for, like, oh, I want to know a button that I have in there, so let's go ahead and open this one. Okay, I want to click that button. Well, if you move the position here, so let's go ahead and do that. It should, at some point, there we go, give me the class NN, but it is not picking up that particular focused control, because it's not focused, that's why. Yeah, so buttons are not focused by default. So it will not give you that. But I don't know why it doesn't give you other information like class and N and so on.
And the other thing that this is what, remember that post I talked to you about the other day, Isaiah, from Mexico? It's just one thing that, I don't want to say irks me, it annoys me, is which is just when you're new to this, it's very, hey, everything we're talking about was like controls, and this control, and that control. Then you go in there, and there's class NN. And you're like, where's control? Like, you're telling me to look for class NN, but you're doing control set, control click, and like.
Yeah, and this is one instance in which I can show you what we can do. So this was, again, I just have these little snippets of code that do very interesting stuff like this. I just loop around and get the control name, or the class NN for the control, and put it in a tooltip. So now whenever I hover my mouse, I could see the class NN for those buttons, and that's what you were actually referring to, like button 11. Yeah, there are 11 buttons in this GUI, and that's the number 11. And this would be the first one that I created. So they go in the same order as they were created. And, you could use that name and just go ahead and control click, like control click.
In Windows Spy, the simple spy, the tool I had basically write for me, I purposely mislabeled it to say control, right? Okay. Even though it is a class NN, but it's just, to me, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to explain to people that look for this, put that in your control, but it's really the class NN, but it's one of the things that always.
Exactly. For you, it's like a little bit easier to remember that that's the control and that's it, and don't talk about the how it really the Windows operating operating system is looking at it. And sometimes that is actually really helpful. And for that reason, sometimes, this tool that you're mentioning right now, the Simple Spy, it comes in a little bit handy because it just filters out, just gives you what you need in a way that you understand it. And that's it.
Thom, did you have any questions on your?
Yeah, I had two come up that are pretty simple. So I guess people can, when I schedule a live stream, can actually ask questions in my chat before the stream's even uploaded. I did not know that. Because as soon as I started streaming, I was like, whoa, why do I got all these messages here? So that's kind of cool. So
all my questions, I have you solve them, and then I don't have to worry about it.
you just copy and paste them over to my side. Let me see. So this person, I guess they finally convinced their boss to let them install Autohotkeys at their job. So congratulations on that. I know that can be hard sometimes, especially because they have no idea what you're talking about probably. They just want to know what my favorite macro recorder is. For Autohotkeys, the only one I've ever heard of or really used is the Pullovers macro recorder. If you're using this for work, I definitely recommend you can use it as a starting point to kind of mimic some stuff and then see what kind of commands it's getting out. But from there, I would always just say, okay, here's what the macro recorder did. There's something called a mouse move. Just punch that into Google, AHK, and then actually learn how to code it on yourself. We talked about it multiple times where the macro recorder can really junk up your code with useless code you don't even need. So it is better. It's a good starting point if you don't know the name of the commands for the stuff you're trying to do, just to get an idea and then move from there. Or if you just need something like within a split second. There's been times where like we've had emergencies at work and it's like, we need to fix this within the next 5 minutes. And I'm like, I'll just use a macro recorder real quick because I just don't have the time to code in 5 minutes what you need. But that's really the only one I've ever heard of for Autohotkeys. Have you guys seen any other macro recorders besides Pullovers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it depends how you're defining macro recorder, right? Because
True.
a lot of people that are asking for a macro recorder really don't want to learn how to code at all.
Yeah.
So if you subtract the part of like, hey, we're not focused on is it going to give you the right text to set the commands to use in Autohotkey to learn, then like automate my task does a lot of what you need, right? And it's simple and easy. But yep, there is, as I said, there's other ones. There was actually one the predecessor.
Yeah, there was the predecessor for Macro Creator. I think there was this script that it was used to create GUIs, and I don't know if it was GUI Creator or something like that. And beside creating GUIs, it also allowed you to kind of like record steps and other things. It was not like built for that. It was just kind of like a basic thing that it had. And I think from there, my Pullover might have either gotten the idea or just said like, I can do it better.
Yeah, do it better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say that about all my stuff. Someone can do it better than I can.
No, but so long as it's working, like there is no point.
Yeah.
On there are tools that are specific for that particular thing, and creating GUIs was hard enough, right? For some people, like they didn't understand the concept behind it, and that tool just made it so easy. But he added this functionality of recording some steps. But I think there are not many of them out there.
Yeah, at least not very well known, apparently, I guess. So,
Right.
I mean, this one I hear all the time. Whenever someone mentions.
And the ones that I know about, they are paid. So they're
okay.
licensed, or you can pay. You have to pay like $25, $30 for it.
To clarify this, because when you're saying that, you aren't, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not saying it's an Autohotkey macro recorder, right? It's that it's a macro recorder. I've seen a lot
I would say no. So let me say, I haven't really tested it, but I know the program is using Autohotkey. So it is using.
You know that because you're just figuring it out? Because do they actually give you Autohotkey code?
No. So I figure it out, and they do mention it as they ask whenever you use Autohotkey in your project, you have to credit them. So they do have a credit for Autohotkey. I wouldn't say like the GUI is built with Autohotkey, but they are doing a lot of stuff that I know that is without a Autohotkey.
Yeah, sure.
And one section of it is recording macros. Now, what I do not know is if you can export that as an Autohotkey script, even though the program itself allows you to write Autohotkey scripts and run them. So it allows you, there's a section for it that you can perform, like you just write your script and it does it. I don't know if after you record a macro, if you can export it as an Autohotkey script.
Okay.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah. Now, the other thing, though, I'd say is, like, I have now granted it's kind of defunct now because of IE dying, but I have a web scraping syntax writer, right? I have a API syntax writer. I just haven't done it yet, but have an Excel Autohotkey syntax writer, right? All these things help you write your Autohotkey syntax. They're not they don't record your steps you're doing, right? But then again, you could use in Excel. I just did it the other day, and maybe Word. I forget which one I was using, but I recorded the macro using the built-in VBA macro recorder,
and then just translate it.
Yeah.
So easy, right? It's so close.
Yeah.
The other thing I use a lot too, you know, you were talking about GUIs, is, you know, I know how to write a GUI, but there's this one program, it's Autohotkeys, exports to Autohotkeys, is Smart GUI Creator. And I love that thing because I can code a GUI, but with this program, I can literally design one within like minutes that's like super complex, and then just push export to my clipboard and then copy paste it and then make any changes I want.
And now you do the changes that you really need.
Yeah, that's the only one thing I'll say, like, I will always use. Like, I don't like using macro recorders, you know, just because of how much it junks, but this thing is so clean, it writes it so well. And then after that, you just add like your settings, like if you always want it on top, or, you know, change the font or something. Actually, I think you can change the font within it, but you can literally create a GUI within like a minute or two with, you know, everything, buttons, pictures, tabs. Yeah, I mean, it does pretty much everything, I believe. So to this day, I still use it.
When you start making it more advanced and complex, that when it just
yeah, that is the bread and butter of programming, because then you have this situation in which you start simple, but people start asking, can I do this? Oh yeah, let me add it. Can I do that? Oh, okay, let me add it. At some point, by adding and adding, you have this really complex program. I would assume that Photoshop just started as a Canva and just one little circle. You could just put circles and squares. And then they were like, oh, how about if I could do these? How about it? Now you can look at Photoshop and you would say like, holy crap, how can I even understand all the options that this thing has? But
Oh, yeah.
I get your point, but I think that many projects start out simple, and when they go maturing, they get more and more complex with time, you know.
Yeah, especially in the workplace, you know, especially over time. You know, I found when I first started writing Autohotkey scripts at work, you know, they're like, oh, this is cool, and they kind of just left it at that. But over time, they started learning, like, hey, I know Thom did something like this before. That means he can probably do this. Let's add it. So it's funny, even though they don't know programming, they start to learn, like, I bet we could create a feature for this. And then it's like the requests start coming in faster. So it's like a double edged sword blade, or whatever that phrase is, where it's like you look really good, but then eventually it's like, let's just pile more work on you and make this way more complex. The other
day,
Yep.
The other day, Azais and I did a what's new in version 2 and kind of like best practices and what to look out for with Dimitri. Yes, I'll try to say his name right. Anyway, he started off saying, he's like, hey, yeah, you know, I have one script where it started off as one function and now it's over 40,000 lines.
Yeah, that's exactly, that was so funny. He was just saying like he was just one function, and it's true. That's the reality of it. People think that these programs that you sit down and start programming and have these huge programs. That's not how it works. You sit down, code one thing that you want to do, and later on you start adding up, like, oh, hold on, I know that I can do that. Can I do this?
Actually, Jean, are you still here listening? I would love, because he's, you know, his QAP started off as the folders pop up, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And then
Still listening. Not very active today, but yes.
And then did you decide, or was it from user input that you kept adding to it? What was the?
mostly user input and my own needs.
Right, often the bigger drivers. Right?
But a lot of user input because I've done things that, for example, compatibility with Total Commander, which is an alternative file manager. I don't use this, I use Directory Opus. So I made some integration with Directory Opus, but I also done some for Total Commander because very active users having good suggestions in every aspect of the product also wanted to have Total Commander support. Yeah, it made the product more complex at some point, but I'll always try to keep the basics simple. So create a favorite folder is still easy, but there's a lot of options. You can have placeholders in it. You can have some dynamic menus, a lot of things like that. But I see my product more as a kind of power user product that and it is an end user product. You don't need to know how to code, but you need to be ready to have some learning curve.
Which also, well, yeah. I was going to say though, when the whole conversation we were having about a macro recorder, I was going to throw QAP. It's not a macro recorder, but you can do a lot of automated stuff with it, right? A lot of times for people that are just using hotkeys and hot strings stuff, they don't need to use Autohotkey. They could use QAP easily.
Yeah, there are snippets, text snippets, a kind of favorite that you can create in Quick Access Pop-Up. There are two types of snippets. Text snippets, which are just text that you can type with, you can include placeholders in that and things like that. Be replaced when you paste the snippet. But there's also macro snippet, and then it's a kind of front end for Autohotkey because what you will add to your snippet will be typed at the keyboard using the send command from Autohotkey. So it allows to, for example, press Alt Q because you can enter just the exclamation mark Q in Quick Access Pop-Up, and it will be interpreted as something to be sent using the Autohotkey send command. So yeah, it's also a way to automate your tasks. One more way, because there's a lot that we can see with you all the expertise you bring to this conversation. Joe, later, if you don't have question, I could show you one of your suggestions for Quick Access Pop-Up, which was date calculation. Remember the now placeholder that can enter the today's date or day, or you can spell it different ways. So I have added in the last release a date calculation. So if we have time later, we can take a look at that.
I do have someone posted a question, and just
there's one in,
if you want to share Isaias while I talk it through. So just because it's a really, to me, really simple example. He's wondering if you can use Autohotkey to write a script which takes the value of a text file, for the Autohotkey output. And so, for example, using Autohotkey to open and run a file, and then using the file output in another Autohotkey function. So what it really boils down to is using Autohotkey to read a file, and then depending on what's in that file, do something, right? But I mean, there's probably a dozen ways to do what you're asking in Autohotkey.
But mainly you would use file read, which is the function that would read into
you said a text or CSV file.
So. Yeah, so let's go ahead and do the following. So I would have the name. So I'm going to read a file. I'm going to put in here the a variable that says like the file contents or f contents. Okay, and then you just put the name, the path to the file. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a variable desktop, which is my desktop location, and in there I'm going to find the file that I just named file.txt. So that's what I'm going to do. File.
And just to throw out there, because you mentioned Floki mentioned the CSV, Autohotkey has a built-in CSV parser loop.
Right.
Also.
Yes.
So
yes.
You're working with the CSV. We're not going to demo it here because it's just more complicated than it need to be, but it is built in, which is cool.
Right. Now, if you file read that into this variable, now that variable can be used anywhere you want, f contents, inside your program. So now you can actually pass it as a function parameter if you want. by reading, and after you read it, that variable is going to contain that until you delete it. So you can have a program that uses that variable throughout the whole program. You just have to read it once. So that's a very simple way. And for what Joe just said, we're not going to actually go over it, but there's a loop command that you put a file path, and then you put loop CSV, I think it is, and then the file path is how you actually just go ahead and do that.
I think it's loop parse.
There you
It
go.
is parse and then CSV. I think it
CSV
is.
is the, yeah, because CSV is saying, hey, this is a very,
This is a very specific type of file that you're reading, but there is a way. If you go ahead and open up the help file and look for loops, you should find the.
and the reason why I got really excited about it and mentioned it is because if you have ever tried to parse a CSV file and realized if there are double quote encapsulated content, like doing that manually is not as easy, nearly as easy as you might think. So I wish he had like a tab delimited as well. It would really simplify stuff because sometimes the file itself is tabbed. Now, Jean has a library. That's actually how we first started chatting years ago. It was your CSV buddy, right, Sean? So, which actually, ironically, doesn't just parse only CSVs.
Yeah. I think it's in that. It's not available.
If I compile a script, I can't include other. I'm not sure. I see a question from. Is it? It's sorry, my text is just too small. It just. If I compile an AHK script, I can't include other hotkey scripts, and I guess you absolutely can. It'll actually when you use the compile command, as long as it had an include, or even if it's stuff in your library, it'll automatically suck those in for you, right? When you compile it.
But that's not really the compiler. That is the include command. So the include command literally just grabs that script and puts it in that location, as if you copy pasted it. So prior to even compiling, the Autohotkey interpreter looks for those scripts, puts them there, and now pass the whole file to the compiler. So the compiler is going to look at it as one big file with all the other ones included already.
So if it doesn't work, maybe it's because the path is not correct. The path is relative to the current folder instead of the folder where you compile. So you may have to look at maybe writing the full path of your include file to make sure it will be found when you compile it. It could be something like that. Because yes, I've done very frequently to include in compiled programs.
I had one come up that basically they want to know, I guess they have a script that changes the priority of video games that they're going to be playing. The answer is the game has to be running for you to change the priority. You can't just have it auto start and change every game you own to high priority when you run it. You could create a loop that just checks like every so often to see if the game's running and then change the priority. But yeah, you can't change priority if something's not even running on your computer.
Yeah, the priority, is related to the running, executing, executable that's wrong.
So maybe a
But
set
what I would
timer.
also say, because I played with this before, sorry, Thom, is
yeah.
it actually changing the priority for me didn't really make a lick of difference in the stuff I was doing.
Honestly, like, I mean, if you're gaming, I guess I could see you needing to change.
I think in that context, or working with very high intensive programs like
Photoshop or editing.
Depend on your computer as well.
Yeah,
right?
of course. But the thing is that to change the priority, you would need the PID of the process, right?
Yeah.
So that means, as you were saying, Thomas, you cannot operate on something that is not running yet. But there is a way for you to get the PID of the game that you're looking for. So you can have your script when you run it, get the PID of that process first, and then go ahead and change the thing. And then, as he also said, then just have a loop that
set timer or loop.
At any point, any other games, or if the game was closed and reopened, to get again the PID for that process.
Yeah, and I actually have a video coming out, I think in a few weeks, where I talk about kind of this stuff of, processes, and then I even made a simple script in the video where I show you how to, every few seconds, check what your active window is, grab the PID, and then change it, so that way whatever program you're in is always high priority, which, once again, more for gaming. I don't really see you using that for like, let me open Notepad and have it high priority. But it will do it if you want.
No, but the cool thing about those kind of videos is that even though you might not use it for one thing, you can learn about it
And
for
adapt
other
it,
things.
yeah.
Like for example, hey, what if I need the process PID of an active window just to go ahead and close it?
Yeah,
When
yeah.
I see your video, I have a loop that is looking for a specific program that I don't want opening, and after it opens, I get the PID and I just go ahead and close it. So you can adapt whatever you're learning on that to other type of tasks.
Well, that's what you hope for. A lot of my comments, especially when it comes to the gaming comments, they're like, "Hey, I like your script, but I wanted to do this instead. Can you write that script for me?" And I'm like, I'll just link them to a video. Here's how send commands work. Like, some people don't understand. Like, I think your category's education, right, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm under education too, and people don't understand that. They think there should be a category called "we're freelance workers that don't get paid."
We're not paid. It's just like to teach you how to do stuff. Yeah, it's true.
Hey.
That's true.
Jean, if you're still there, if you want to, I'm curious, unless Tom has a question on his channel, I'd like to see
That was the last one
Is
for
that-
now.
injecting of the time thing it really makes it much more flexible in what you're doing, right? So I'm very curious about that.
I'll share my screen first. Yeah, I'll create a new snippet and just include in it the placeholder and it's here. Yeah, here. So there's a page that explains what are the placeholders in the knowledge base of quick access pop-up, and there are various type of placeholders based on the location of your file browser, the selected item that you have in your file browser, and also based on the date and time. And so what you do is that you include the now placeholder with column and then the format of the day that you wish to insert. And this format is exactly the same as you would use with the datetime formats in Autohotkey. So for example, to insert the date of today, I will use now, column, year, month on two digits, and day on 2 digits. And this is today. This is today. Like to say today. So add, save, and the first way to use a snippet is to open the menu, but there are more convenient ways. But if I select today here, it will just type this is today and the date of today with the format that I gave. What you could also do now is to have calculation. So now and before the column, maybe the screen is not very large here, but before the column, you can add plus or minus a number and a unit. So here, that's a very simple example, plus 1 day, but it could also be, let's show it first. And here it will show the day, but in full text, just not the number, but the name of the day. And if I use it here, tomorrow is 70 in French because my system is in French, so it returns the date and time in French format.
So for the next version, they'll be translating it for us, right, Sean?
Yeah. I count on you to give me the library.
But that's the thing. This is what we were mentioning. So you just created a nice feature, and then later on you have to
have suggestions.
Oh, how about if you translate that?
Yeah.
And
it's been maybe a year ago that Joe threw in this idea, and of course I use the menu to type the snippet, but you can also use hot strings. So for example, comma TOM. TOM is my hot string for tomorrow, so it will type the same thing. So you can, of course, and you could use hotkeys if you prefer it to hot strings. So let's return to my. So that's a simple example of calculation, and this one is okay. And I'll make one here, so it will say here today in 10 days, so plus 10D here, that will calculate in 10 days. Last day of the month is another new options where you can enter now with LD, so last day of the current month. And if you want to include it in the full date, you will have to also use now again to say now with the year, the month, and because it will be a dash here between the year and the month, so you use a dash here, and this will calculate the last day of this month. And finally here it will be the last day of last month. So now minus 1 month. M capital is for month. I'm using the same convention that we have on Autohotkey, where minus capital M is for month, and lowercase m is for minutes, because you can also calculate times time, a minute, and hours, and second with that. So here, so a few examples here. So I will just say like this one here. So we have today, which is the 18th. We have in 10 days, which will be the 28th of March. The last day of March is 31st. The end of this, so the full date to give the end of this month is what I've used with two now placeholders. And the last day of last month, page missing here, is with 28. So of course, depending on the month, it will be 28, 29 every 4 years, 30 or 31. Also, the last thing I can show is that you can also create calculation with multiple values. So the syntax for now is the word now with the sign being plus or minus, and value pairs. So what I've shown to you is just 1 day or 1 month, but it could also be 1 year, 6 months, 3 days. So just by having all these letters being, these pairs being one after the other, and we have an example, where is it? Here, for example, it says plus 1 month and 10 days. Okay, so let's make an example of this here. I'll just replace this one by someday in the past, and it will be now minus 4 year, 3 months, and 5 days. So someone can tell me what day it will be?
That's a good one. Yeah, I will tell you in a minute. Don't worry. I'll let you know. Don't
I'll
worry.
tell you too. Okay. So someday in the past was the 13th of December 2017.
That's awesome.
Of course, there's not much situation where you will use these complex date calculation, but more frequent one will be for an invoice that will be due in 10 days or 14 days. The thing I do not calculate is working days. It's something that could be added, of course, to if you say that it will be, it has to be paid in 10 working days. It's not considered for now, so you would have to consider 7 days per week to do your calculation. And so that, and the same thing for time. You could say you could type, and also this I show it inside snippets, but you could also insert it inside a folder. For example, if you have a folder structure where every month, every folder has a month as the name of the folder, so it could be C / the year, for example, and then next month it will be now. Next month is plus 1M, and the format will be Is it mine capital? Yeah, I think it's capital.
Yeah.
So this will not work because I don't have a folder like this, but I'll just enable the debug mode, so that would just show the preview of this placeholder here. The location does not exist. Yeah, save it anyway. Okay, and if I have to save. So the favorite does not exist. Something wrong. Okay. Okay. I selected the debug mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, but debug mode seems to be overwritten, if you wish, by the verification that the path does not exist. So I have to check some. It's always go to the demonstration. You find
I know you try to demonstrate something.
But
something will go wrong.
Yeah. So with these new things like that, so that's something you of course, if the folder was existing in my directory structure, and most of the time when you do something, it is for something existing. That's why I didn't get this error before. But it should not, when you are in debug mode, it should be done regardless of the really existence of the folder. But you understand that here it would give the number 04 because next month will be 4. So calculation can also be interesting to access some of your content or to pass parameter to an application, because when you create an application favorite, here you would enter the path of the executable file that you wish to run, but here you can say in which folder it will start and parameters. So for example, parameter could be /date, because the application that you're running will process this parameter and then use now and all the calculation that you will need to do. So that's all done with Auto. That's not Autohotkey, but it's all done with using Autohotkey.
Well, I was laughing, Jean, because I believe in today's call you said it. QAP is really, for power users, right? Like the functionality you have in there. Someone who you don't have to code, but boy, that's pretty advanced stuff, right? It's very cool. It's there.
And again, this is the thing. It was a simple tool, but now you can do so much with it that it looks like, oh, this is for power users, right?
And folders pop-up is still available for users that just want to create a menu of folders.
Yeah. Exactly. I just want folders.
Because at some point I switched to quick access pop-up because it was doing so much more than just folders. So but it's a very old. I think it was in 2014 or 15 that I switched to the new name. Yeah, because and often Joe and I had a discussion about should I make a stripped down version of quick access pop-up and to make it easier, but I have my own preferences and priority to improve things instead than removing things. So just a natural inclination that I have to. Yeah.
Well, and like you said too, Jean, you've done it where you want to use it. It's doing the things that you and a lot of your audience too, right?
Right.
What I would love if there was an easy way is to somewhat disable, like have tabs and disable some stuff. So if you're new, you only see the first 5 core things, and then if you're a little more advanced, you see all this other amazing. Because also it's available 10 languages or something. Like it's crazy what the stuff you built into it, right? It's very robust.
Yeah, that's kind of like, and a lot of programs do this, that they have these 2 views, basic and advanced. And then when you start the program, it usually starts in basic view, which has just the key elements, just do this, and that. That's it. And if you want more options, that you would go or click on advanced, and that would be an option that would be saved that later on when you open the program, it's going to always be in advanced.
It's a preference that you.
Right, it is a preference.
Yeah. Also in the options, there's a lot of things that you can configure, and it could also be stripped down, or presented in
Kind of like
in
in
2 modes,
way,
novice or beginner or advanced users. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to add to my long wish list.
And that is gonna add a few thousand lines of code to your
Yeah, to
program.
my 25,000 lines of code. So I
Exactly.
can just show you the wish list if you want to see what's already there. let's-
So Jean, actually, sorry for cutting you off, but I don't want to say made me laugh, but it's very fitting. Night Lemon said, "Is there a way to make a GUI that you can put a lot of other AHK scripts in?" Right.
But that's what
That's what
it
is
is.
Autohotkey
This is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's what
because
I use a lot of it for, right?
Yeah.
yeah, because when I showed that you can add applications favorite here, application can be any type of executable or scripts. So it could be an AHK script, it could be a VBS script, it could be a batch
just
file,
opens that
BAT.
file. It just
It will
opens that
run
file,
the
right,
file with the parameter that you could give if you need to give parameters to this script.
That's awesome.
But that's also something that can be done. Yeah, it's a kind of GUI for Autohotkey scripts. Yes.
Mhm.
So these are all the suggestions already in line. And I pick in this, I have my, so there are 3 pages, so there's a lot.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of ideas that are just
Like,
maybe
yeah.
not doable or very
Yeah.
hard to do. I remove them that can
Dang.
theory never be done, so I reject some of these. And then I have my own, and if you
My vote's for dark
follow
theme.
that, you vote for?
My vote's for dark theme first.
Yeah, I've implemented dark.
Everything on my
Uh,
computer is dark theme.
Yeah, it's already there with only one limitation. So maybe, I don't know what you've seen. Maybe it's something just to improve what's already there. What have you seen about dark theme here?
I saw that towards the bottom, I think it was. I just saw it out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah. I support dark Windows. So this is done, I think.
Oh, okay.
After
No.
dark mode productive. No, that's an old thing I should remove.
Yeah, that was the old
Because
one.
yeah, because you
Sweet.
can you can here in the options enable dark mode. Where is it in the customized window?
On general, I saw theme.
Here,
Oh, okay.
here, and it will follow
Ah.
your Windows configuration. So I'm not in dark mode, so it will not show it in dark mode. But if I was in dark mode, it would show my GUI in dark mode.
Oh, that's
Same
awesome.
thing for the menu. In the menu configuration here, you can select dark mode,
Menu
appearance. Where is it?
At the
Dark
bottom,
mode here,
yeah.
but there's only one limitation with menu, and it is an Autohotkey or Windows limitation, is that when you have a menu that is on more than one column, you can insert column break in menus using here the column separator.
Mm.
As soon as there is a column in your menu, it will not show dark, it will show light, always. And I've searched the forum, I asked people like Lexicos about that, and he just doesn't know. That's too narrow question. Why isn't it? So it's a Windows limitation,
It's a Windows
bug.
thing, yeah.
So I have some users that add menus in 2 columns, and they decide just to restructure their menu to come back to 1 column, because in 1 column it will show
Right.
dark.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so and that's I think the menu API is very old, and they didn't take into
Yeah,
consideration these
yeah.
2 things. You know,
There's a lot of
that's a
things
new
that I would
thing.
like to do. You cannot configure conveniently the background and foreground color to make variations here. So I'm not sure. I think you can configure the background color, but you cannot configure the text color. So if you
Yeah, it's true. Exactly.
if you
cannot do that.
select a very dark background, so you won't see your text, which is yeah. So it's not something that did not evolve as other aspects of.
Right.
of
I do have a question before you move on from there. So, can you open up the menu again, please? Just the. Is that one big menu, or is that like 2 menus?
It's one menu.
Right.
It's one menu.
Maybe
Here,
a workaround would be like having your script that whenever you insert a column, everything else is built on a separate menu and show both at the same time.
but I'm not
that
sure
would be kind of
how
like a
it would.
workaround.
You cannot display 2 menus at the same time, I think.
Really?
I don't think you can do it, because when you open a menu, you lose control, and then you wait for the result of this menu will be the selection of an item, or
Right.
so the second menu would appear after this menu is closed.
Yeah.
It's a good try, but I
Or,
don't think
you know, as you have that, you can have on the menu, the last item would be like show second part, but I don't, that defeats
yeah,
the
but
purpose.
that's like having a
that
sub
defeats
menu.
the
For
purpose.
example, here
Yeah, that defeats the
utility
purpose of it.
is
Yeah.
a sub menu here. So that's the way that probably the user preferred
Would
to
have
have the
to,
dark
yeah.
background. He just created a sub
A
menu to
sub-menu,
include what.
right.
Yeah, so I like, because here in the right part, it's kind of managing my menu and my dynamic menus and things like that. For example, here, reopen folder, the clipboards, a lot of stuff, the customize, and the left side is more my content, what I'm
Right, exactly.
what I'm working
I
with.
see it.
But thank you for the idea.
No, it was just like it's something that popped in my head. Maybe
Yeah,
that
yeah.
would be a workaround, but nah, not really.
But as you said, it's a very old component
is.
of Windows,
It is.
and it's not been improved in Windows 11. And fortunately, it's still compatible. It still works the way it was working before.
There we go. Sorry.
There you go. Now I can
I was saying, let me share my screen for a moment here, because Knight, I forget, was it Knight, what? Lemon was asking, they just wanted to, he said, just launch, be able to have a simple GUI to launch programs. And to clarify, so like, this is my version of QAP, and you can see, like Jean's, like I have nested upon nested upon nested, and like this one launches a bunch of, each of these stuff. Now, however, this is, sorry, that's, trying to remember, there we go. This is my own built-in Autohotkey GUIs menus, and it looks identical because it's basically doing the same thing that QAP is doing. However, I manually wrote this and have it pull in icons and pull in, and it launches programs, it does a lot of stuff. But the second I learned that QAP existed, I stopped adding to this, and just switched to QAP, because anytime I want to move something in here or add an icon or whatever, it sucks.
It's a pain.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a pain in the
It
ass.
makes it so easy. So that's
Right.
also, you can make it very simply, make a GUI to do the stuff, right? I'm not trying to dissuade you from it, right? We have a GUIs are easy course in Udemy that Isaiah's here and led, but it's just that QAP makes it so easy. That's why I'm harping on it, right?
Yeah. Basically, it usually boils down to how much time you want to spend on it. So yeah, you can do a GUI, and GUIs are not that difficult to do, but maintaining it, and for example, adding stuff to it, you will have to actually get to creating functions that do that for you, and that's going to take some time. So sometimes, depending on what you really want and how fast you need it, sometimes it's just better to pick up the tool that is already built and has everything already done. And they already had all the nightmares of debugging.
Yeah.
It's been your goal.
There you go.
Whatever. I mean, here's the other thing, which is what I was putting in the chat. Like, why not just have a hotkey to launch the things instead of even having a GUI? Unless you have, like, I still put them in QAP, and QAP allows you to add a hotkey or a hot string to launch the things on top of having the GUI in case you forget. And that's all built into it.
It is a very common idea, by the way, because I remember that my Autohotkey toolkit also does that. So it is like all of us at some point think about, hold on, I want to launch scripts or launch programs or launch or run scripts and so on. And I created a tool that it was just for that, but I'm not maintaining it anymore. QAP is being actively maintained. So if you find a bug in my program, I'm not going to be able to fix it really quickly, while John here is working on that every day. So if there's something wrong, he will know, and he will try to fix it if it's possible,
Yeah, for 24 hours at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but it's true that a lot of users like quick access pop-up just as a reminder of their hotkeys, because in the menu, when you show the menu, it shows here on the right side what are the or here the hot string between parentheses. So and this is small, but of course I could customize this and select a larger you prefer larger font size, pop-up menu, appearance, menu icons, excuse me here. So I select the smallest size of icon, but it could be larger like this.
And having those icons is a really, really helpful way to organize things and speed up your usage.
Yeah, that's by far probably the best thing, I think, is the icons. It helps your eyes snap exactly where you need them.
Yeah,
I love
and I've added the possibility to have icons from various type of image files. So at the beginning, it was only ICO file or icon coming from executable or DLL files. But now you can use any JPEG or GIF or BMP file.
You can use your own. Huh.
Yeah, as long as it is square and not larger than 64 pixel by 64 pixel. But in the past, you had to convert your image to an ICO file, which was not something easy, or you need to go to a website to do that.
Yeah.
But now it's very much simpler to do that.
Yep. Awesome.
And talking about GUIs, there are simple GUIs, but there are some also very complex GUIs. Like this is one GUI, and instead of tabs, because tabs were too limited, I have these various sections here. And when you load the GUI, it will load all the sections at first, but hidden. And then these buttons here will reveal only the controls that are related to this section here. So it's kind of simulating tabs, but manually. So it was a very
Complicated.
a big project. but it gives me full control on this. I could add other tabs if I wish. But yeah, doing GUIs can be easy, but it can also be very powerful. So you can create, and having things being aligned correctly and all this is a lot of things. Having things in columns. There's a lot of good tricks to learn to how to do that.
Yeah. And actually, the new versions of Autohotkey allow you these margin options that allow you to just snap something into one of the margins, either top or
Okay,
left.
not like tabs or.
Well, so if I have a control, and you know that you can specify the X and Y positions, right? If I specify an X position to the right of a different control, when I say YM, it would snap it to the top of
To the margin.
So it would snap it to the next margin. So that way it would actually effectively you create a new column right away. So usually I use that to create one column, then I snap the next one here on the top and create a section, and now all the next controls are going to be belonging to that second column and so on. So the language is evolving to make it a little bit easier for you to do those kind of.
One reason to add to the list of why would I switch to version 2?
No, but I think version 1 already has that, so it is not.
The margin, you can set a section.
No, the margin as well. Let me show you real quick. So.
Yeah, but I think the margin moving in your GUI. That's what I understood from what you said. That
it's not that you're moving the margin. It's that you're telling the control to snap to the next margin. To either the Y margin or the X margin, just to create a column on it. So let me go ahead and see if I could just show you real quick what that looks like. So just let me verify I'm running version 1, right? So we add, edit, and let's say 75, and then we add edit, X plus 10 and YM. So, and then we show. This is what I like this script for. So notice how.
Can you increase your font size, please?
Yes, sure. So let's go ahead and do something. Let me add a second one here, and I'm gonna make it Y plus 5, so 10. And let's just use the margin, by the way, which is the same for all of them, right? So here's the thing. Let me remove this one first. So right here, I have my first control. The second one, I just added it. The Y plus whatever number I want, right? and that would effectively put it below the first control because I'm not referring to the X position. If I was referring to the X position, like X plus 10, it would move it to the right, but I don't want that. I just want to put it below the previous one. That way, they're one below the other. So the next one here, if I just add an X parameter like this, it would put it on the right of this control. So it would look like this. We put it right there. But I don't want it there. I want it to start at the top again, to kind of like start a new column. So you could use the YM command or XM command to kind of like snap it to the margin. The margin would be the top of the thing. And when you do that, it would be at the top. And you do not have to specify like Y0 or whatever. It just goes ahead and does that. I create a section here now. And my next controls, I could just say X saved, you know, just to put it on the same location as my
I'm using
previous
sections a lot. Yeah.
Right. So now, but doing this YM here kind of like creates a new column is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay.
So that is something that is very, and it is also on version 1 as I'm just showing here. So it is something that you can take leverage of right now.
Thank you. Looking at the doc. Okay.
Yes. I use it very often, and now using that, what it allows you is that all the controls kind of like relate to the previous one. So if you add a control, everything else moves. Or if it actually remove a control, everything moves back on position at least. Which was something that it was a little bit annoying when you do not have something relative to one another, then you would have to move each control separately.
Yeah.
So, I can't pronounce it. Yeah, I'll try. He's asking about having a bunch of functions kind of together grouped. And Isaiah, shut up, because I know he's going to jump to classes. He'd like to do with this stuff. So, and Isaiah's right. Classes, that when they're related, that makes a lot of sense. However, there's a thing in Autohotkey where you can shove all your functions, like my Excel function library. Everything begins with the letters XL underscore, and then inside the file, I have the different names of functions. Now, the name of the file you save in anywhere you want, or you put it in one of 3 places, and Autohotkey will automatically find it. But everything begins with that XL, and then it will automatically search in that file for you, and anything that has your XL underscore beginning up to that first underscore, it'll automatically find it if you use that include, and you can have all of them grouped together now. Isaiah has done them in classes and demonstrates how it's even more powerful, because then you have the dot notation and methods and things. But to keep it simple, that's a quick intro to them.
Right.
Really,
if you just need functions, yeah, of course, just put them in one file, name that file your prefix, and prefix all your functions with that, and that's it. And then just include it, and it would just work like that.
Let me show, just as an example. So
yeah, I was gonna just ask you if you could show an example, because even though you mentioned it, you tried to explain it, but I was kind of like lost as to when you said the asterisk. I'm not really sure what you meant, but yeah, the underscore.
So everything in this library, in this file, begins with XL underscore, right? And that's what, and the name of the file is XL. So you name your file, everything up to the first underscore, and every one of these, is the same beginning, and everything works wonderfully.
Right. But hold on, can you call the function? You have to call the function by its full name, like XL last row, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But my point is, if you put it, which I have it in my underwear Autohotkey's installed in the LIB folder, again, hey, I don't have to use my include commands. It automatically.
No, I do not hate. Yeah, but that's the thing. I do not hate that it is there or that it's automatic. What I hate is that it can be found without you even knowing that it's there. That's the part that I don't like.
Yeah, well, whatever. But it's still the usage of it, however you want to phrase it. Yeah, I know you dislike whatever. I mean, it's a long word, but yeah. But that's why I lay this out this way is it's nice because I don't have to have all these different. I don't have to have a function for each file. I put them all in one file, and then I can either include it or put it in a certain spot and leverage them anywhere. It's awesome.
Yep.
Right. Yes. Someone asked if that engineer asked if it's for managing multiple functions. And when you say managing, it's again, these are all, this is my Excel function library, right? It's all these functions
all
are related
related.
to,
Yeah, so I relate to each other. Yeah, that's right.
super helpful, easy way to keep it there.
Not a question, but something that keeps messing me up when we're doing these live streams is when you guys start talking about tabs. And you're like, oh, tabs. And I'm like, what? Because of TabNation. It keeps messing me up. I keep thinking you guys are asking me a question. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, no, they're talking about actual tabs.
I think you should name yourself Combination, and then it'll be even more.
Combination.
That's right.
Which most people ask what tab means. It's kind of a double meaning. Tab is actually my initials of my name, but in coding you use tab a lot, you know, to tab over your code or something. So I kind of I just tell people, I'm like, yeah, it just means like tab on your keyboard, even though it's just my initials.
I thought it was like an old Diet Coke, the tab.
I have one of those.
Oh man.
I have one of those up on my fireplace actually, right here, just because it has my initials on it. I got that like 10, 15 years ago.
Semicolon instead. It was really interesting. QAP is so powerful. There's so much there. You kind of, you need a lifetime. It's like Autohotkey all on its own. You need a lifetime just to explore how much power there's actually in there. And I bet you most of the users only use a fraction of what you can actually do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, it's the same with Photoshop, for example.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm a
Photoshop is
photographer,
so
and
big.
Photoshop, same thing. I only use 10% of what's actually there.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think
Not even that.
It's just because it for some group of people they're going to use those tools, and for other group of people they're going to use those other tools. It would be the same with any type of program, especially when they're that big. Like, it is not for you to use the whole thing. It's very unlikely that you're going to use the whole thing. You just focus on whatever it is that it does well, and the other things like other users are going to use it.
Yeah, something at my old job that we used to, you know, be very cautious about is even if there were features that everybody could use, is releasing very slowly. You know, hey, we got 20 features ready to go to release, but let's only release like 2 of them. Because sometimes people sit there, read through your documentation, and completely forget within like a day that one feature, even though they would love it, use it, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. And, you know, so even with Autohotkeys, like just, you know, that's something like, you know, for anybody who's doing Autohotkeys at work and creating, you know, it's exciting to want to release all these features. You're going to remember them for the most part because you wrote the code. But just remember your users, like, don't overwhelm them. It's very easy to do. You know, a lot of my users, I always say, are very lucky to be able to turn a computer on. So imagine them trying to use your program.
And the stuff that we're writing is either for ourselves to automate our own life or to automate the life of our comrades, you know, in the office, or, you know, I'm writing stuff for other photographers to use because we use similar workflows. So I'm finding that if it works for me as a photographer, my other photographers have seen what I've done for myself and say, I want one for myself too. Can you do one for me? So but it's a very niche market. It's a very niche market. Yeah. Has the times changed? How long have you guys been on today? Because I think the clocks have changed.
Yeah,
We're almost done.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I thought I joined at the beginning and I joined towards the end.
No, I made a comment in the chat. I'm like, you know, I realized right when you joined, I'm like, he's back an hour. I'm like, I should have.
You have a different time zone. Yeah.
Where are you at?
Can I ask a question relating to, it's a knowledge thing, it's not a programming thing. I'm looking for a particular bit of, what I find with Autohotkey is if you can search, you can find a bit of code that someone else has written that you can just use. And it's like a jigsaw puzzle. you use all the pieces to make up your own picture. And I love that about, I don't have to go and reinvent the wheel. The one thing I'm looking for is a way of, I've copied data from my CRM, and now I need to selectively paste it into a web page. But I want to use the keyboard tab down and up keys, so I don't have to scrape the web page. I can just put the cursor on your first field, and then because it's the same web page every time, it's not a dynamic web page. It's always taking the same data. I can just do it by sequence. Is there a kind of a right click your data kind of thing, code that someone wrote to do that kind of thing?
But hold on, let me. So you get, first of all, do you know how to get the data from the CRM?
Yeah, I've done
into
that.
the clipboard? Can you get it into the clipboard?
I've got it in arrays, or I can have it in clipboard,
Whatever you want.
Yeah, I've got it.
You have the data already.
Yeah.
Why don't you use the send command, for example?
I can.
And just on each tab, just send the piece of data that you need.
Correct.
Because that's what I'm understanding that you're trying to do,
That's
right?
the input. Okay. So that's the method I'm going to use. But it's the bit in the middle. So I might have, let's say, 5 different pages that, let's say, a photographic competition uploads. The data is always the same. You know, the client's name, the client's address, the client's email, all this kind of stuff.
The data.
The format is always
the same. Okay.
And I might have to do this 5 times a week to 5 different websites. Okay. And what I want to be able to do is to have a button that launches the website and pastes the data that's in the clipboard into that website.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to have some way of being able to program. So, for instance, let's say in the future that the website changes. So the user has to be able to set this up in the first place.
Like the URL. So
set up the URL and set up how many tabs do I need and what data do I need to paste.
in simple terms, and this is the part that I think we were talking about at the beginning, Tom. So you have certain options. You can use Tom's
Auto control manager.
extension. You have that particular extension that allows you to just grab the information from the clipboard, or maybe from a file, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Or from a file, you can get the information from a file or a clipboard.
Yep.
And the tool can open the website for you, and you can actually also fill out some stuff based on the data that you have. So
Awesome.
Probably,
So is this a
probably
script,
that's
Tom, or is this get compiled?
he can explain you, and it is a very good option. The
Okay.
other one is to use kind of like a library, like the Chrome library, and just code it yourself. I would go with Tom's idea. The
The
Tom
Chrome library kind of has a bit of a learning curve too,
right?
at least compared to the Chrome extension.
Well, I don't know what browser the user will be using. So as much as I want to use a Chrome library,
All right.
I see. So you need to be adaptive. Okay.
so Tom's, where do I find Tom's stuff? Code library, whatever script.
Yeah, let me search for that real quick.
In the chat, that'll be useful. I'm
yeah.
sure, I mean, this is such a simple function that I'm sure other people have done it already.
No, that's
you know,
the thing.
and it's a beauty of Autohotkey.
let me just stop right there. Everything looks simple. It's not simple because it is very specific to your needs, and your needs make it more complex, because just as you just mentioned, my user can have different browsers. That makes it way more complicated, right?
Correct.
So I would always, whenever you think about something, if you think it's simple, it is simple for a human, but for a computer, it might be really complicated. So
I agree with you, and that's why I wanted to make it dirty. What I mean by dirty, as in use
Whatever
send
shows
key,
up.
and send keys, and just remember the sequence for the page using tabs, as opposed to doing the web scraping stuff where you're looking for field names and trying to populate different fields and doing it that way.
Here's the thing, though. Like, even different browsers will have different number of things on it. They don't always have the same number of tabs if you load a page with a different browser, right? Depending on where you start.
Yeah.
QAP has a tool, a built-in functionality too, where you can send tabs and fill out a form, right?
To the form, yeah. That's true. It has an auto form field.
Yeah.
Yep.
But still, I'm like, what you're asking for, I don't think you're going to get, it's not
a simple
something.
solution. Yeah, it's
Okay,
not a
well,
simple solution.
Let me iterate it in this way. My thought was to have a list of variables available to the user and have like a macro recorder, hit the record button, and then the user will hit the keyboard, as in click into the first field, click a variable from the variable list, hit tab, hit another variable, hit tab, hit another variable, and it'll record the sequence of down up the keyboard sequences and the fields he's filling in with the right data.
Let me tell you, yes, that is supposedly easy, but as soon as you enter into the equation that you're dealing with a browser, it gets very complicated right away, because the browser, when you hit tab on your keyboard,
Yes.
interprets it in a specific way, and if you have another browser, it interprets it in a different way. As Joe just mentioned, the web page looks one way in one browser and a different way in other, and it can change the order of the fields or whatever.
Okay.
So it adds complexity that you're not thinking about. But the main concept is simple and doable. You can grab text and try to send it to a window. That is very simple.
Yeah.
Autohotkey could do it. I'm not really sure why you cannot use the send command for that. That's my
No, I can. But the reason why I want to be able to have it record the keyboard sequences is that you're right. Every browser has a different way of taking it.
So you can do that for a specific browser.
So whatever the user enters for their browser is what is recorded that will work for them. Okay.
Yeah.
If they have to hit enter instead of tab,
Yeah.
that will solve the different browser issue. Okay.
Right. Okay. So I do understand your concept. I think it's doable. I would suggest you to stick to the send command
Yes.
and if statements. Like, you first, instead of giving you code, I would just let you know. So at the beginning of the script, you can either have the user select what browser they have, or you can use the Win Active to kind of like guess it. Like, you can guess what the browser is. With that, you determine with an if statement, if the browser is this is the key sequence that you're going to send, which is going to be send plus tab. And that's the cool thing. That's the reason why I come back to send. You say send a sequence of keys. With the send command, you can send a tab, and then the clipboard, and then a tab. So you can do that. So you already have the answer in there. The only thing that I would say is the if statement at the beginning. You have to first figure out what the browser is or have the user selected, and then the send sequence is going to depend. If the browser is this, send it this way. If the
I agree
browser
with
is
you,
that,
but if the user is recording it, then that's irrelevant because the user will enter into the keyboard what they need to make the form work.
again, and this is the other part, you told me that the data was formatted in a specific way and that it was going to be sent. Now, if you're talking about user recording steps, that makes a lot of complexity. That's something totally different. And the problem that is going on is that again, it is simple for you to visualize that and say, like, everybody can think it like that. But inadvertently, you're adding a lot of complexity by joining the concepts together. One thing is to record steps. The other one is to send the steps. And the fact that there are different browsers, that makes it more complex.
Well, if you record it on the same browser that you're sending it, then it's fine.
Again, the concept of recording the steps is the complicated part, because you're saying it like if it is so easy. Like, okay, so I just record the steps. Yeah, that's not it. For somebody that has experience, they might be able to do it But for somebody, if in your case you don't know how to record it, that would be a very complicated thing to do.
Is there somewhere code that, like a keyboard logger, logs exactly what the user is doing on the keyboard?
I would suggest you just using the pullover macro recorder, which is just exactly that. The macro recorder, the pullover macro recorder.
Not heard of it.
Okay, so maybe we could lead to it. The pullover macro recorder records steps into Autohotkey code. So you can just
Lovely.
Joe
You
just
see, this
said
is
that.
why I love talking to you guys, just because of the experience, you know, and I'm not asking to write code, I'm just saying, you know,
Where would I go? Yeah. So if you want, so if the first step is to record steps,
yes.
just use a macro recorder.
Correct.
It's already available. You already have that part.
Mhm.
Now that you have the code for Chrome, and then you have the code for Internet Explorer, and you have the code for Firefox, now your script is going to have an if statement that is going to check if the user is in that browser, then I'm going to use this code.
Yes.
If the user is in that other browser, I'm going to use this other code. And just use the send command to send the strings depending on whatever the browser is.
Yeah.
So I think
And then I don't have to get involved with scraping the page and dealing with HTML bits and.
Not really.
You know, I would still, I mean, and I'm not trying to be negative,
Yes.
but to me, the odds of this working the way you hope are so low, it's ridiculous. And I don't mean to be a jerk, right? It's just what you're asking, what Azace is trying to convey.
It's more complicated than you think.
You're doing API calls negates the whole thing with the browsers.
Right. It would be easier.
We could write something with API calls that emulate sending the stuff and negates having to use a browser. I mean, it's so much easier.
Okay, so if I use API
And then it doesn't
calls,
matter what browser.
you've done
they
a
have.
video on that, on the API calls and how to use them a while back, and I can go and study that.
Yeah, so basically, with it, the two main key points of the complexity come from recording steps and what browser they're using. Because sending keystrokes is easy, or sending data is easy. But those two components that I just mentioned, you think of them as easy, they're not. They're really complicated.
And that's why brainstorming with you guys is so cool.
So if you remove those two things, you're golden. So that's what Joe is saying. If you do an API call, you don't have to deal with browser, you don't have to deal with recording. It is just the easy thing of taking the data and sending it in. That's it.
Because you have multiple things going on. There's you're trying to imitate possibly different browsers on different computers on web pages that potentially change over time, right? Like it's
a lot of variables.
Riding a horse with a bow and arrow, shooting a thing that's moving, like with other people doing the stuff.
Maybe I just like pain, you know.
No. But I understand. I understand you, and that is very common. It is just when you're not a programmer per se.
Yes.
Things might look very simple when they really aren't. That's what happens. That's what's going on.
So there is a link to the API. Is it on Joe's the API call tutorials is on? It's a page on Joe's The-Automator. Is that correct?
Yeah. There's all the pages you can find them. All the tutorials you can find them there.
Joe, I don't know if you've got it handy. Could you chuck the link?
He just sent it. He just sent it on the chat.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Go to the Automator, it's a main page. And I have an API syntax writer. Having said that, it's not that simple. There's a learning curve.
I wouldn't be here if it was.
What typically we'll do is use a browser and have Fiddler, which is just a network traffic monitor, to simulate. We use the browser and we look at what API traffic happens, and then we write code to basically
emulate that.
Yeah. So I think programmatically it's much cleaner and it resolves a lot of potential potholes. But until I talked to you guys, I didn't even realize that these were potential potholes. For me, it was plain sailing, you know.
Right.
So,
no, but it's good. Now, what I would tell you is this. Whenever, and if it looks like you are a person who wants to solve things for your business, right?
Yes.
Most of the times, people like time to learn new stuff.
Exactly. I don't have time to learn this API stuff.
Right, that's what I mean. So it is usually the best bet for you to contact somebody that knows what to do with that and just pay them something and have them just do the tool for you. Because most of the times you're going to spend way much more money because you're going to be losing. You're losing time.
Yeah, I understand that. But, at the end of the day, I enjoy it as well. So,
Oh, no, that's different. If you enjoy it, and you have the time, then I would just point you
Enjoys the pain.
That is the right direction. The
now,
best
is there
what you want to do is an API call. That's it.
Yeah.
Just learn that and you're good to go.
Is there a way of getting someone for a small sum of money to automate that for me or write the code for me so I can carry on and mess about with it?
I assume there's a lot of people who would do that.
Where would I find them?
I
mean, I'm talking to them, I presume.
No, but this is the thing. So usually what happens is that I wouldn't offer myself because I work with projects, right? So depending on the amount of projects that I have, I would take it or not. But there's a lot of people like that. I think you can actually even ask in the forum. I don't know if that's allowed in the forums to ask if somebody can. I think they do. There's some people.
I've seen them before. I don't know if it's technically against the rules or not.
I don't know if it is against the rules or not. So you just say, like, I need a script that does this. Is somebody willing to do it for a sum of money? And somebody would, I would assume that somebody would actually just say, like, yeah, I can do that for.
My website has a link, actually.
Given out for free just as a challenge,
My website has a link on there, a whole like page that says like for hired, and I think Joe does too.
Okay, right. That's another
yeah,
thing.
and it's also, if you don't want to hire me, you're just looking. It's also good to look at just because it does mention like what kind of information you want to give the person when you do email them. So it's also a good reference.
Are we talking about $50 or $5,000? I ain't got a clue.
I would say no. So don't worry about that. What I'm just saying, that you just ask for pointers, right?
Yeah.
So the pointers are those. The pointers are APIs for your specific problem.
Yeah.
And if you find that is not, that you don't want to invest the time for that, or you think it's too hard, or that something else is, you need to use your time for something else, I would suggest you to hire somebody that can do that in, a little bit of time. And
Awesome,
those are
because
the
they do
two-
it every day, day in, day out.
I would
They're
just
fluent at it.
point you on those two directions, and then from there, you can just go ahead and see if you can solve the issue. Because I get what you're trying to do. I would go either with a send command or an API call. That's what I would.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, the advice is sound, and thank you very much. And that's why I'm on it, to get advice.
There you go.
Because you're right.
That's why we're here.
As much as I enjoy doing it, the busier I get with my photography. I make a lot more per hour doing my photography than I am messing about with APIs.
I just said it because I was a businessman before, and most of the times I noticed that if I was actually in my same business, if I was performing one task, like for example doing customer service, I was losing money because I could have been spending that time in getting more valuable customers.
Yep.
So I realized that, and a lot of times it is kind of like the smarter move to not invest way too much time in something that in the end you might make more money doing something else. That is how I usually see it. That's the reason why I mentioned it.
No, I mean, perfect. Thank you. I mean, there isn't a lot of places. I mean, Autohotkey is confusing because it's not as big as people think it is. But then again, some of the code that's written, I'm looking at the website, and it was written 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's still relevant today. So is Autohotkey growing, shrinking, staying the same? It's very niche.
No.
I'm sorry, how are you interpreting? First you said it's not very big. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so when I'm looking at, when I'm searching for help and code and examples, the stuff I see is all very, very, very old, 2006, 2007, 2009, that kind of stuff. And then very rarely do I see anything that's 2021, 2022, 2019.
I can
So
tell you
I'm
why.
thinking, where's the new stuff?
I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah.
The reason why you see that is because that answer was so good,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't changed, that that answer still works now because Autohotkey, as you say, is not moving that fast. Now, yes, it is moving. That's the reason why version 2 is, on the side of line already.
But it doesn't need to move that fast if it does the job.
Exactly. So why break something if it is actually working? So the reason you cannot compare this, you cannot use the fact that there's an old answer to, Autohotkey is small. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Actually, it is so good, and actually there's so many people that use it because it is so stable. I was surprised a few months back when I was watching a YouTuber that I watched for some other reason. He likes to talk about I don't know if you know it, like Thom Scott. He actually does a lot of videos about information and stuff like that.
Yes.
And one of his videos, he just said, like, I like to program stuff, and I just use this language called Autohotkey, and he's a YouTuber with millions of viewers.
Yeah.
Like, dude, what? You use Autohotkey? How did that happen? Well, again, the fact that the answers are old have nothing to say about the size.
I think he's a chap that has 3 full-size keyboard as macro keys.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of his biggest videos. And he did a video too where he was using Autohotkey, where he was talking about, it might actually be that video where he's talking about when he was doing like movie production, he was somehow using Autohotkey to set off explosions.
Yeah, and do very quick scripts and so on.
Yeah.
Like, dude, how did you know about Autohotkey? I thought it was niche. No, it's
Yeah.
not.
But it was just crazy.
Here's you think it is.
Here's another
what I'm
thought
trying
for
to
you.
say.
You're all familiar with Stream Deck. And
Yeah.
They've got these lovely, I'll unplug it. They've got these gorgeous buttons that you can program with the graphic and the mechanical push buttons. And they trigger my scripts, some of them. My thought was, there are so many tablets out there, like the old, Amazon Fire things that are old, but you can pick them up for $10.
We have
I
a
can
whole webinar on that guy.
You have?
Yeah.
I wanted to program one of them to become, instead of a Stream Deck, to just program buttons to fire off things.
I can't think of his name because it's not how it's spelled, and it always throws me off. But he showed what he does, and it's basically like a ribbon. He clicks it, and then the thing updates to have a whole new array of options for buttons that launch things. I mean, it's crazy.
This is what I use.
Like Thom is showing his right there.
Yeah, this is my Steam Deck. It's an old tablet. So I put it into, I plug it into my computer, and it gets detected as a third monitor. And then I literally just built a GUI that maxes out onto the screen here.
The screen size.
Yeah, so
Where can I get this code? Where can I get this stuff? Again, I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
yeah, you just create a GUI. I mean, literally, that's it. You just create a
Well,
GUI,
I
design
don't
it how
expect
you
the
want.
tablet to become a screen that I can use.
That's just a plug and play thing. There's no code. You plug it into your computer and go to the settings, and it will detect it. Now, depending what you're using, some computers, if you plug it in as like with your HDMI thing, it will actually automatically like detect it and ask if you want to use it as a third monitor. I have another tablet that I've used before. It's a Windows, Windows 8 or whatever, where when I start it, I have to hold down like F5 or something, and then it will automatically go into third monitor mode. So there's no code involved.
It's a monitor and a keyboard.
What's up?
It's not just a monitor. It's a monitor and a keyboard.
Well, it's touchscreen, yeah. So it's touchscreen, so I just create a GUI so I can just touch the screen.
No, I'm saying
And,
you just plug it in and it knows it's a touch screen. Oh, wow. It's all done
Yeah.
for you.
Well, it's like when you turn your tablet on, it automatically, knows it's a touchscreen. But some it depends on the device. You'll just kind of have to Google it. Some devices, my computer will auto-detect and automatically create it into a third monitor. But then there's other devices like my Windows 8 tablet where I have to hold down a specific key why it starts. I think it's like F5 or something. Every computer is different.
It just connects automatically.
What?
So that depends on the type of tablet. But look at this. What you're
Yeah.
going to do in this case is that you're going to find your tablet,
Yes.
the one that you have, look for it on internet, and put it as a plug-and-play monitor.
And just see, yeah.
If you Google that, it would tell you whether it's possible or not. And probably very likely right there, you might find a list of tablets that might be used as
Compatible, yeah.
plug-and-play monitors.
Because every person that has children has a whole collection of their tablets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got like 10.
yeah, it is how it is, right?
But yeah, Joe wants to wrap up here, I'm seeing. But yeah, just but yeah, every computer is going to be different. I can't. It's not more about the operating system. It's more about the like the BIOS. So if you have an HP computer, it might be this button you have to hold down when you start it. If you have Dell, it's going to be a different one. So you just kind of have to Google it and see what it says on how to get into it. So just Google whatever the name of your device is. Use as third monitor,
Okay.
and that should give you a result.
Second monitor, it doesn't matter.
Or second, yeah, I'm used to third.
Yeah.
And the code to make the GUI and all that, is that available out there, or do I have to write my own?
I mean, I would write your own just so you have it designed how you want. You look up Smart GUI Creator. It's written in Autohotkeys, and that's for something that's very simple. You can make one really fast. I know you came in a little bit late, but if you want to watch the beginning, we actually talked a little bit about that kind of stuff too.
Thank you.
So you might want to loop back around.
That's good. So,
Blown away as usual. Thank you, guys.
No problem.
so I'm gonna be leaving for now. I hope you guys
Same.
enjoyed this time, and yeah.
Back next Friday, everyone.
Bye.
See ya. All right, everybody. We shall be back next Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We just had a time change here in America. I know some countries don't do that, so just keep that in mind. If you're trying to look at our time and you've already compared it to your time, it's changed since then by an hour. Spring forward, fall back, all that good stuff. In the description below, once this video goes live on the actual channel, or not live, but uploaded, I guess you would say, we have a link in the description that has a survey question. So if you are not able to make a live meeting and you still want to ask a question, you can actually pre-submit them, or you can just email me directly on my About tab, and we'll that helps us for two reasons, and you obviously is you can't make it, maybe you can watch later to get your question answered, or if it's going to be maybe a little bit more complex than we're used to, it gives us time to kind of get some code written. That way you're not sitting here watching us code for 10 minutes just to answer a question. We can have it pretty much ready to go and just do a simple explanation, say here you go. Sorry, I got the hiccups. All right, guys, see you next one.